Okay, good evening once again to all the participants present here for the third session of day one of the international webinar on languages of Northeast India, jointly organized by the Department of Linguistics, Assam University, and Tibla NEI. Today's session will be chaired by Dr. Priyanku Sharma, who is an assistant professor at IIT Guwahati, and I hand over the session to you, Priyankuda. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Monali. I hope you're able to hear me well, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, welcome to this session on salient features of Northeast Indian languages. And we have one plenary talk today and one paper presentation. The plenary talk is by K.H. Dhiren Sinha. And I'm pretty sure if you are working on Northeastern languages, you'll be aware of this particular name. But as a chair of the session, it's my duty to give a short introduction of Dhiren. So K.H. Dhiren Sinha is a professor of linguistics at the Assam University. And he has been working in Tibeto-Burman languages for quite some time. He has published extensively, published not only papers, but also several books on Dimasa and other Tibeto-Burman languages. His dissertation on the structure of Dimasa was widely appreciated for being an extensive study on the Dimasa language. Also, you know that he has been quite active with the Tiblane events so far. And he also has several projects that he has done, which were funded by several organizations such as CIL, Mysore, mostly related to endangered languages or low resource languages that are spoken in Northeast India. So without further ado, I would invite Dhiren to give his talk, which is phonological typology of Tibeto-Burman languages in Northeast India. Dhiren, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Priyanku, for wonderful introduction. Good evening to all of you. Today, I'm talking about the typology, particularly phonological typology of Northeast Indian languages. And it is a very vast area. And as you know that in Northeast India, there are more than 400 languages or dialect. But it is estimated, number, but we don't know how many languages are spoken in Northeast India. And as you know that, sorry, I have to share my screen here. Sorry. Yeah, as you know that Northeast India is a paradise for linguists, anthropologists, and social scientists from the country and from the abroad as well. Some of the linguists, they were talking about Northeast India in terms of its different language families. In Northeast India, we have 5 language families like Afro-Asiatic, Dravidian, Indo-Aryan, Thai, Kadai, and Tibeto-Burman. But majority of languages belong to Tibeto-Burman language family. And there are different linguists, they were classified TB languages in different subgroups. And I'm just mentioning from the Bradley 1997, Bradley has categorized TB languages into subgroups namely body, Northeast India, Caucasian, Central, Northeastern, and Southeastern. And this classification of debatable language family are sometimes, controversial. Some linguists, they have categorized Tibetan in or under different subgroups. Yeah, so for the present talk, I have chosen some of the debatable languages. I have some data from Dimasa and Bodogara languages, but I have taken some of the data from the published work by Indian linguists and the foreign scholar. Yeah, this is the map of Northeast India. As people know that Northeast India is having, 7, but nowadays it's 8 states, including Sikkim. And this Northeast India is having different language families, as I mentioned in my earlier talk. And this is the phonemic inventory of debatable language family. The phonemic inventory of TB languages consists vowels, consonants, and tones. And interestingly here, tone is one of the unique features of Southeast Asian languages, including the Tibetan language family of Northeast India. But however, Barling 1961 mentioned about Garo that Garo, a TB languages of Meghalaya, doesn't have tonal distinction. But the glottal plays a significant role to make a contrast in terms of instead of pitch. But however, Garo languages in Meghalaya and Bangladesh, they have some different variety, but we can re-examine really the body group for the Garo dialect is having tone or not, or they, as Barling mentioned that they do not have tone. We have to re-examine the things, but this is a further research in part of the Northeastern linguists. And vocalic phonemes, we have vocalic phonemes of TB languages mainly vary from one language to another language. We have different patterns of vowels, as I've mentioned here that 5 vowel pattern, and this 5 vowel pattern E, U, A, O, and A, and this 5 vowel patterns, as we have found in the language like Kirvi, Jayapal 1987, and Garo Barling 1961, and Tua, Joseph and Barling 2006. And these are the languages having 5 vowel pattern. And there are some other languages I have to mention here. They have 5 vowel pattern, but for the sake of this study, I have taken such languages that I have mentioned here. And 6 vowel pattern, when you look the 6 vowel pattern, what I find is that the majority of the languages in North India, I mean the TB languages, they're having 6 language pattern, 6 vowel pattern. Like we have E, U, then A, O, and A. And this 6 vowel pattern is very common. So we have here the language like Atong, Chothe, Dimasa, Oireng, Onyak, Lotha, Manipuri, Paite, Rongmei, Tangkhul Naga. So they're having this 6 vowel pattern. And when you look the 6 vowel pattern, we have the other varied pattern like here, is E, U, then A, O, U, and A. And these 6 pattern is not very much found in the languages, but we have only one language, a pattern. But there are some other languages, they're having this pattern, but it is very rare. It is not frequently found in Tibetan languages, but I have taken here Apatani, Abraham 1985, and Sema Sura 1980. And there are other pattern among the 6 vowel pattern, like here is E, U, A, O, U, O. And this pattern is particularly found in Ao, Voro, and Rava. And this back vowel, here the high back unrounded vowel is frequently found in Bodhagara languages like Voro, Rava, and even Riang and some Rupini language, they're having this back vowel. I didn't mention about the Rupini and Riang because of space. And 7 vowel pattern. The 7 vowel pattern, as we have here, this E, U, then this E and this O, and here U and A and A. And the languages are Galo, Wagbaro. These 2 languages are having this vowel pattern like 5 vowels plus central high rounded vowels. And in the number V, we have this vowel pattern is particularly found in the missing Prasad 1991. And interestingly, we have these central vowels. We have 3 central vowels. This is something like this U, and then this and A. Particularly here, what I have to mention here, there's this retroflex, vowel, and it is it's not frequently found in the other Tibetan languages, but in fact, the Nishin, we don't know, but I have to cross-check with the work of other scholars on missing language. But Prasad 1991 has mentioned about the retroflex vowels in the form of a central vowel. And we have here number C, Devi Goswami 1994 is a language having a pattern of vowels like 5 vowels plus lower mid-front unrounded vowel and long low central unrounded vowel. And the long vowel, when you talk about the long vowel, the Devi is the only language which is having long vowel. But the other Tibetan languages that I have chosen for study is Mission. It's not found this long vowels. And Kheza, one of the languages, these Naga languages, is having 5 vowels plus the mid-center unrounded vowel and mid-back unrounded vowels. And it is very interesting. What we find is that here the central vowels is one of the very crucial vowels in Tibetan languages because the central vowel varies a lot. 8 vowel pattern, we have Thado. I have to mention that Tirumala in 1972 has worked out on Thado language, and he has mentioned the 8 vowel pattern in the language. But I have to cross-check with the work of the other scholars on the same language. I have to mention that Dr. Mary Kim Haukip also worked on Thado language, and Dr. Fulton Haukip is also worked on the same language, but the number of vowels are a little bit different. Maybe due to time and space, because Tirumala has worked out on Thado in the year 1972, but it published in 1972. That may be okay. His data may be 1960-65. But the Dr. Haukip and Dr. Mary Kim, they have worked out just 2000. Yeah. 10 vowel pattern is a very interesting, vowel pattern, and this is particularly found in the Nismi language, as Sastry 1984 has mentioned. The maximum number of vowel consisting of both oral and nasalized vowels. But this is the language we're having nasalized vowels, because oral and nasal vowels in the part of the mid vowel and the low vowel. That is, this A, then this O, and this A. And this is the only language having, nasalized vowels in the study. But I didn't find among Northeast Indian languages, particularly TB languages, having nasal vowels. That is one of the very interesting, issues made by the first 1984 for of TB languages, because generally TB languages do not have the nasalized vowels. Consonantal phonemes stops. Most of the TB languages have mainly 3 or 4 stops in the bilabial, alveolar, palatal, and velar. However, so we have, different languages among the TB languages having different series of stop sound. As I mentioned here, that this bilabial, alveolar, and velar, say ba, ba, da, da, ga, ga. The language like, Dimasa, Mishmi, Nishin, they represent the above set of stops, particularly, say 3 voiceless and voice unexpected stops. So another, pattern like bilabial, alveolar, velar, and post-alveolar. So we have to mention here that, some of the language like Lotha and Tangkul Naga. Sorry, yes, Sama. Sama is the only language in the group which represent the pattern like, bilabial, alveolar, velar, and the post-alveolar. And here, post-velar. Here, the striking feature what we find is that post-velar, because this post-velar is not the indigenous, is not the typical feature of TB languages. It's a very interesting factor, and we have to cross-check. Okay, so whether this curve, the post-velar curve, may be influenced by other languages or borrowed from other languages. But Frieder 1980 mentioned that this post-velar curve is one of the very striking feature of the Sama language. But anyway, in Gallo, post 2007 has also mentioned about the bilabial epico-alveolar. This is one of the very interesting factor here, that this epico-alveolar, it is alveolar, but mentioning that epico-alveolar, then again laminal, palatal, velar, and glottal. So here post-alveolar, here epico-alveolar, then laminal, palatal, and glottal here. This combination here, okay, in Gallo, as mentioned by post 2007. But I'm not quite sure about the fact that this glottal is a phoneme or not in a language. But post 2007 has mentioned that this, as mentioned, this glottal is one of the phonemes. Say, not very much clear about the glottal. They're not very much clear picture about this glottal. But anyway, so this is the pattern. Okay, what we find okay from this work. Then we have the language like Chothe, Denigaro, Pogaro, Rava, Tiwa. So they're having the pattern like bilabial, alveolar, palatal, and velar. So here is a very common pattern. Most of the TB languages, they're having okay, this 4 pattern like bilabial, alveolar, palatal, and velar. And the next we find the next pattern like bilabial, alveolar, palatal, and velar. Particularly, Manipuri language is represented in the above pattern like bilabial, alveolar, palatal, and velar. Here, I have to mention that, okay, this C and E and F. In E and F, okay, only difference here we find is that this bha, dha, and jha. We have in Manipuri here bha, dha, jha, and dha, but it is not exactly the typical feature of Tibetan languages. This may be, say, marginal phonemes, maybe borrowed from the other languages, particularly the Indo-Aryan origin, say Bengali or Assamese. Why it is, because we have some lexical items borrowed from Indo-Aryan language like Bengali and Assamese as well. So anyway, these are the patterns we have. I'm not okay discussing about patterns because there are many patterns we have here. Just to mention about the stop series. Here, the number of stop series range from 6 to 13 at different points of articulation like bilabial, dental or alveolar, palatal, velar, glottal, post-velar or the labial pattern. But the most common stop sound in a family are pa, ta, ka, followed by their voice counterpart ba, da, and ga. Among the stops, the voiceless counterpart pa, ta, ka are aspirated in syllable initial position. Conversely, the voice counterparts ba, da, ga normally lack aspiration and never occur in syllable final position. So consequently, the voice aspirated stops are found only in both words, especially in those of Indo-Aryan origin. One such instance can be from Manipuri, Vara, Fair, Ghari, wristwatch, and dhul, drum, jhal, cymbal, etc. So the lack of voice aspirated stop is one of the typological features of almost all the Tibetan languages of the region. But we have this va, dha, ga, but it is not found in our indigenous lexical items. We may find in the board words that I have mentioned earlier. And we have Galo, Kheza, and Manipuri Paite. These 4 languages are little bit, spatial. Why it is, here, this lamino-palatal stop, ja and ja. And it is really transcribed as ja by post 2007. And interestingly, the post-velar and labial-velar stops are also occasionally found in some of the Tibetan languages, particularly the Naga languages. However, it is not a common phonological features of Tibetan languages, as we know that the majority of the languages are not having these particular sounds. In this connection, Matthews of 2003 support the fact that a number of Tibetan languages have a post-velar, that is ovular series of initials. Post-velars are especially characteristic of the Quangic languages occurring in Bipyon, Muya, Namui, Pumi, Kiang, and Sekhen and Java. And the lowest branches like Lahu, Mong-Ang, Ni, Sangpong, though they also occur sporadically in Kamlipong, Siam, and Himalayas like Balti, Tibetan, and Bajan. Matishok rightly pointed out that, okay, the post-velar and labial-velar stops are not frequently found in the languages of Northeast India, particularly the Tibetan languages. And as he mentioned, that it is not the indigenous typical feature of Tibetan languages. And one more very important issues here, most of the Tibetan languages, they don't have retroflex stops. And in this connection, Morel 1997 rightly pointed out that the absence of retroflex and the presence of alveolar or dental sounds are typical features of Northeast Indian languages. But he was talking about the other languages, other language family as well, like the Indo-Aryan. He meant that say the Assamese and other Indo-Aryan languages as well, they don't have the retroflex stops. And nasals is very interesting issues in Tibetan languages, because particularly in Tibetan languages we have these 3 nasals like bilabial, alveolar, and velar. But some of the languages, interestingly, so they have, the liminal palatal and velar. Say in the pattern like bilabial, alveolar, and liminal palatal and a velar. Say, this Nagar is a 2010 and Prasad 1991, they have mentioned about the pattern like bilabial, alveolar, palatal, and velar. Because, in some languages, if it is velar is there is no palatal. But in this language, they have palatal as well. So simultaneously, we have the palatal and the velar. So, and the pattern here, like, in the C, bilabial, alveolar, and velar. What we find is that, this Khasa. Kafo 2003 is the only language which have 5 nasal sounds, including 2 aspirated nasals. And here, we have aspirated aspiration in bilabial and alveolar in the form of this ma and na. And this is not frequently found in other Tibetan languages. But Khasa is one of the Naga languages spoken in Nagaland. So they're having, the more number of nasals, including these 2 aspirated nasals. And we have in Lotha, so asserted 1993 mentioned about the Lotha language having, more number of nasals, so including, both aspirated and unaspirated ones. That is bilabial, alveolar, palatal, and velar. So here, all the, patterns like bilabial, alveolar, palatal, velar, okay, they have their aspirated counterpart. And one more interesting here, in the palatal, so there is a kind of nasalization, but I'm not, I'm not quite sure about the nasalization. I don't have any explanation about this nasalization in Lotha, as I have taken data from the Asoria 1983. But we can re-examine, okay, what is really happening in the present date. So we have an issue to work out on Lotha nasal sounds. And languages with 3 or 4 nasals are very common in Tibetan language family, but the maximum number of nasals in a family seems to be 8, that is Lotha, and minimum is 3, that is Atong. Whatever may be, the majority of Tibetan languages, they are, having 3 nasals, like, alveolar, bilabial, and velar. Then, the majority of the nasals is voice and can occur in all 3 positions, that is initial, middle, and final, except few Bodogaro languages like Atong, Boro, Dimasa, Dewi, Garo, Pogbarok, Rava, because they lost their initial occurrence of velar nasal nga due to influence of neighboring Indo-Aryan languages, particularly Assamese and Bengali. The dominant languages Brahmaputra and Brahmali. Africans, a good number of Tibetan languages like Boro, Dewi, Dimasa, Garo, Pogbarok, Manipuri, Nissim, Rava, Thado, they don't have affricate sounds, but nevertheless, a few number of languages like Ao, Tangful, Naga have at least one series of affricates, the voiceless unaspirated palatal affricate, sometimes transcribed as I have just mentioned here on the screen. But Atong, Kirby, Mismi have a subsequent series of affricates, that is voiceless and voiced unaspirated palatal affricates like this, Z and Z. So Lotha is the one which has a maximum number of affricates at different places of articulation, like labiodental affricates, then alveolar affricates, and palatal affricates. And as I mentioned earlier, that Khasa is very interesting, language in terms of affricate as well. Here, Khasa is having, say, bilabial, then then apico-alveolar affricates. So hence, the voiceless palatal affricates is the most common affricate sound ever found in Tibetan languages of the region. So fricatives,
'Hello? Yes.
Priyanku, I have time now.
Yeah, you have about 7 minutes to like,
Okay,
for,
okay, okay,
is it
okay.
fine?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we started,
yeah, when
started
you talk about
a few minutes ago.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When you talk about the affricates, sorry, when you talk about the fricatives, so this sa, ja, and ha. These are the three common fricative sound, particularly found in the languages of Northeast India. But sometimes we have this bilateral fricative sound is also found in some languages like Dewi, Sama, Thado. But I'm not quite sure about the Sama and Thado. But in case of this Dewi, this may be influenced by Assamese because this Assamese language is having bilateral fricative sound. Ha. And when you talk about the common fricatives in the family, say sha, then this ja and this ha, and I have to mention here that that's the you know final occurrence, the final occurrence of alveolar fricatives, sha, ja, and glottal ha in a syllable or a word is totally missing in TB languages, except in two loan words that is also from Indo-Aryan origin. Say in Dimasa, what I find that Desh, country, and Rajdhani, palace, and Namo, pray. All these words are from Indo-Aryan languages like either maybe Bengali or Assamese. So does the absence of sa, ja, and ha in a syllable or word final position is one of the typological feature of TB languages of North India. Liquids, we have la and ra. These two liquid sounds are very common in the languages, but in fact, some of the languages like Thado, some of the languages like Thado and Khazar. So they are having, Thado is having voice alveolar laterals. And it's very interesting here, then this Khazar is having, aspirated alveolar liquid sounds. So, among the TB languages of North India, Khazar and Lotha are the ones which are having the maximum number of liquids. But most of the TB languages are having, only two, laterals, two liquids like La and Ra. But, very interesting factor I have to mention here that this ow has the voice retroflex lateral fricatives, and it is very uncommon. So, in the reals, in the sense that, this voice retroflex lateral fricatives is not, frequently found, or it is not, found in language in any other languages in Northeast India. So I think so. This ow is unique, or ow is the language which is having this retroflex lateral fricatives. And as we mentioned that when you talk about the TB languages of Northeast India as a whole, and this picture is not encouraged to tell about the trait indigenously or typological, indigenously typological, because as we have studied some of the TB languages in Northeast India, so we are not having such features as we have in all. So anyway, then semi-vowels, most of the TB languages are having two semi-vowels, particularly this palatal ya and the bilabial wa. And Khazar is again, Khazar, the name of Khazar is coming here again. Khazar is having maximum number of semi-vowels, three in all, and aspirated bilabial wa, aspirated bilabial wa, and the unaspirated palatal ya semi-vowels. These are the three semi-vowels. However, the common series of bilabial is wa and ya. And glottal stop, the presence or absence of glottal stop is one of the major issues in TB languages of Northeast India. But however, the status of glottal in TB languages is still not very clear and is a controversial issue. Some of the linguists, they are treating this glottal stop as phoneme, or some of the linguists, they are agreeing the matter that okay, this is not in phonemic status. it is completely a phonological order, phonetic, issues. I didn't mention about the scholars. They have mentioned about the glottal stop because of my time. Naturalized vowels. Most of the vocalic phonemes of Tibetan languages are oral, and some Tibetan languages like Mismi is having nasal vowels. So as here they're having it is having nasalized vowels, but in fact, so the question or the issues is that whether this language, Mismi language, is influenced by a language which are having nasalized vowels, because this nasalized vowel is not a common trait for the languages of Northeast India. Anyway, thus the presence of oral vowels and absence of nasalized vowels is one of the common phonological features shared by the languages of Northeast India. Land contrast, again, this land contrast. When you talk about the land contrast, land is not phonemic in most of the Tibetan languages. But however, as I mentioned here, that in the case of Dewu, they will show land contrast only in a specific vowel, that is a long central low unrounded vowel. But it is not very much clear that it is a common trait for the Tibetan languages. But as we have studied many Tibetan languages, that we can find any long vowels. But if it is, so the question is whether it is phonemic or phonetic. It may be the case of phonetic, but we are not quite sure about the status of long or land as a phonemic, as a phoneme. Voicing is not very much relevant feature in the case of vowels in Tibetan languages, because most of the languages in the family don't have voiceless vowels. Nevertheless, voicing is the most common, or relevant features in the case of consonantal phonemes. That is, Tibetan languages show voiceless contrast of obstruents like ba, ba, da, da, ga, ga, ja, ja, sa, ja. Thus, the lack of voiceless vowels and presence of voiceless contrast of certain classes of consonantal phoneme is one of the typical feature of Tibetan languages. The cluster is, as Benedict 1972 rightly mentioned that here, Tibetan language has, R, L cluster, particularly R, L cluster, and here we have the cluster of foregoing, that is consonant and the semivowels, wa or ya. But we are not quite sure about the consonant plus semivowels. It is not very much frequently found in the language family, but however, this stop or nasal plus liquid is a very common, consonant clusters. And most of the consonant clusters in Tibetan languages are syllable initial or the beginning of the word. It is found in the beginning of the word. But the final cluster is completely missing in the Tibetan languages. Maybe, the final cluster may find in some of the borrowed words from the Indo-Aryan languages. But, we didn't find the final cluster in the indigenous lexical items in Tibetan languages. So the presence of initial cluster and absence of syllable final cluster is one of the typical features of Tibetan languages. And tones, we have, in Tibetan languages of North India, we have both the tonal, feature like this is one is a registered tone and a contour tone. So as our record here, we have 6 tone. The maximum is 6 tone. That is the case of Paite. Paite has 6 tone, and the minimum is 2 tone. Particularly, most of the border languages they are having 2 tones. That is high and low, or rising or falling. I'm just I'm skipping because I don't have much time. Here, this is the aspiration. So, here most of the Southeast Asian languages in general and Tibetan languages in particular are unique among the world's languages in having contrast between aspirated and unaspirated plosives, both voice and voiceless. So, aspirated Aspiration is phonemic in most of the Tibetan languages of Northeast India. I have mentioned here, I have given some examples from different languages, but I'm not read out all the examples. And syllabicity, the prominence of monosyllabic. The prominence of monosyllabic words is very common in Tibetan languages. That is, majority of words in a family of languages are single syllable. So its vowel in the family of languages can be a peak or nucleus of a syllable. There's no non-syllabic vowels in Tibetan languages in North India. And one of the interesting features of Tibetan languages in terms of phonology is that a simple vowel can be a syllable or a word. For example, u, tree, and then e, blab in Manipuri, and u, where in Sama, he in Tangkul Naga, or sut in Mismi, etc. Thus, most of the lexical items in Tibetan languages of the region have a simple phonetic structure like CC and VC. And these are the conclusions. Tibetan languages of Northeast India have a lot of diversity in terms of number of vowels, consonants, tones, and syllabic structure in their phonological structure. And they've also preserved the typical feature of the family, like the absence of voice aspirated stops and contrast of obstruents, lack of voice aspirated stops, initial occurrence of bilar nasal. Then we have absence of final occurrence of fricative sounds, prominence of tones, presence of initial clusters and absence of final clusters, monosyllabicity, etc. And there are many other features of the languages. I didn't mention all, but I have mentioned a few that can be proved that the language is very unique in terms of its diversity, in terms of its features. And thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dhiren, for this wonderful overview. I'm pretty sure there are many questions among the listeners. So maybe what we'll do is that we'll take 2 questions right now and move to the next presentation. Then after the next presentation, again, we'll come back for discussion on with Dhiren. So may I ask if anybody has any questions? Anybody would like to ask a question now?
Priyankuda, can I ask one question?
Yes, please, please, please.
Yeah,
Yes,
Dhiren
Manali.
sir, you
Yes,
have
yes.
mentioned about many important features, yes, phonological features of the TB languages. I just saw the observation on the glottal stop as Dimasa as a language, as one single language. If we are to look at it, then of course it looks like it does not have glottal stop, but it is there in the Hashau dialect. And what is interesting is it has dental affricates which phonetically which are not present in any of the Bodo-Garo languages. Then in the Howar dialect, it has the fa fricative, which is not there in the Hashau dialect as a distinct phoneme. Then again, there are these devoiced stops in the Dijua dialect, but then we can still call them allophonic because the basic phonemes can be identified still. But when it comes to the glottal stop, then it is neither an allophone of any phoneme nor is it a significant phoneme. So I was going through this Mongse now of Alexander Coop, and Mongse now also had some similar issue, and he called it the glottal stop as a special phoneme. So I was also using that term for the use of glottal stop in the Hashau dialect of Dimasa. So can we also call it as a special phoneme because it is there, but it does not represent the Dimasa language as a whole. So can we consider it as a special phoneme in that case?
Yeah, Monali, actually, we have to work a little bit more. So regarding the matter of glottal phoneme, right? Glottal as a phoneme, because this glottal, right? This glottal is what I find is that most of the time it is not exactly what so-called, phoneme. Because you see, say I can give you example, say right, okay, most of the time, the occurrence of glottal, sound is found in the final position of a syllable or a word. But do you have any, my point is that do you have any occurrence of glottal in the beginning of the word or the syllable of the beginning of the syllable? And this glottal
Yes,
phoneme,
actually, it is.
glottal
Yeah,
phoneme
it
is
is trending.
contrasting with which, phoneme. That is also a part of question. The glottal phoneme is contrast with which phoneme? And I mean that glottal phoneme may be the morphophonemic process for the deletion of ka or something like. Okay, I'm not also quite sure about the position of glottal, right? So that's why, okay, what I'm trying to say is that, okay, we need further research, okay, in particular, matter, in particular issues, say the status of glottal in TB languages, whether it is
Yeah,
phonemic or phonetic.
Yeah, I
Come on,
think it
Ali.
needs more research, and also
Yeah.
because the younger generation also, they tend to use it in the word medial position as well. For us, the older ones, we use it in the word final position, but not as an allophone. It just happens to be there. But the younger ones, like for example, the word hadisha, some of them will just say hatsha. So it's even occurring medially, but that so I think
Yeah, Monali, I think so. This is the issue
generations
some of
also.
the
So I think
phonics.
social linguistics also needs to be
Yeah.
it is related to morphophonemics, and also I
Yeah.
think we have to look at the social
See,
linguistic
I
aspects
can
also.
give you one example from Manipuri. See, in Manipuri, we have, lag low, that is calm, lag low. But, when a person is spontaneously telling, the construction, the phrase lag low, that time, they're saying that lao, right? Not lag low, lao. Understand? So in that case, we have, glottal.
Yeah.
But, I meant that this glottal is not found as a phone in the language, right? But we have glottal, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
somewhere.
yeah.
That's why I have given the example that, so lao is a glottal, but it is not a status of phone. The question is that, if it is phoneme, then what is the counterpart of the glottal? In which phoneme, okay, is going to contrast? Say we have pa, ba, ta, da, ka, ga, but we don't have the answer. And it's particularly what I find is the many languages, I find the glottal is not in a form of phoneme. It's particularly what you're talking about, say phonetically. So because of this morphophonemic change, I'm not quite sure about this, glottal, because we need the further research.
May I?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, Bijan here. Just a quick comment
Yes.
as we are talking about the glottal stuff. Yeah, so the same thing happens in Khoibu also. When I work on Khoibu for my doctoral degree, many a times I heard this glottal stuff at the end of the word, but I could not establish a minimal pair or contrasting pair or near pair so that I can establish glottal stuff as a distinct phoneme.
Yeah.
So as the professor Dhiren sir already pointed out, it's problematic to give glottal stuff as a distinct phoneme in the TB languages. Even in Amos' work also in Sumi, he mentioned about phonetic glottal stop. He used the term phonetic glottal stop like that. So yeah, that's my observation, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
Bijan.
And when I was working with
Yes,
Priyankuda, can I just add one?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sure.
I just yes this yeah when I was working with Berlin for the Dimasa tones, then we also observed that this glottalization also occurs not just in high tone, it also occurs in low tone. So, and there were minimal pairs that we could identify for contrast between low tone and high tone. For example, ta and ta. So, sorry, ta and ta. So one is the released and the other is the unreleased, and both are low tone. And there were many other examples as such. So glottalization is there in the Hashao dialect. And what I'm confused with is, yeah, what Bijan has mentioned, that it can be a phonetic glottal stop, but then I'm still confused regarding its position, because it cannot be totally be ruled out that glottal stop is not there. It is there, but it also is working in the tonology of Dimasa.
Yeah, it is there, but the position of glottal stop, either it is phoneme or this allophone. It is very difficult to say that. That's why I'm saying that, okay, this is phonetic. Phonetically we find in some of the constructions because of morphophonetics.
Thanks, everyone, for taking the discussion up now. Maybe I also have a few comments on the glottal stop, but maybe I'll just do it after the next presentation. So can we go quickly to the next presentation, and we'll continue the discussions. If you have a question for Dhiren, please maybe reformulate it now so that we can hear an interesting question at the end of the next presentation. Dhiren, I would like to thank you for such a elaborate presentation. It actually was a very good overview. Thank you so much. And I hope after the next presentation, we'll have more questions on your presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Priyanka.
Okay, may I now request Rita Saha from Assam University to present her work on kinship terms in Thai Pake.
Yes, sir.
Hiren, can you kindly stop sharing?
Yeah.
So hello everyone. Very good evening to all of you. So today I'm going to discuss about kinship terms in Thai Pake. Okay. So first I'm going to start with a very brief discussion about the language. The Thai Fakis, also known as Fakials, belong to the Siamese Chinese branch of the Sino-Tibetan linguistic group. The Fakes possess old historical manuscripts written in Thai Fake language called Lik Chung Khe Man and Lik Chung Khe Khun. The Thai Fakes speak their own distinctive dialect among them, and the language is a northern Thai branch of Thaichin group of Tibeto-Chinese language family. So like other Thai Karai languages, it is highly tonal, and the language is monosyllabic in structure. And Thai Pake language have 6 tones beside the closed and open tones, as mentioned by Stephen Moore. And the Thai Pake words carry many meanings with it. So the Thai Pakes are mainly spoken in the districts of Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. So in Assam, it is spoken in the districts of Dibrugarh and Tinsukia. The major Thai Phake villages in Assam are Namphake, Tepamphake, Longphake, Manmau, Ningam, Molang, Phaneng Phake, Longtai, etc. And in Arunachal Pradesh, the Thai Phake mainly spoken in the Changlang districts and Lohit districts. So I have marked the districts here. So here I included a brief theoretical background about the kinship terms. So kinship terms are generally used in every speech community that denotes relationship between individuals. So like every other languages, in Thai Fakir society, there is a lot of kinship terms. So kinship terms in Fakir broadly classified as consanguineous and affinal kinship terms. Kinship based on blood relation is known as consanguineous, while kinship based on marital relationship is called affinal kinship. So, consanguineous kinship terms in Fakir can be grouped into collateral and lineal kinship terms. So, here I have included some information about the formation of Thai Fakir kinship terms. So, alterations of consonant sounds. Like vowels, Fakir kinship terms are also formed by the alteration of consonants, which results in the change in gender, as we can see in Pa Sao, which means young boy, and Pa Mao, which means young girl. So, Sao, here we have seen an alteration in S and M. Similarly, like as consonants, so we can also see alteration of vowel sounds in the formation of kinship terms. So in Fakir, some kinship terms are formed by changing the final vowel sounds. So in this type of change, the masculine kinship terms are converted into feminine, as in nong sai and nong sao, pi sai and pi sao. So where I diphthong changes into ow, resulting a change in gender. So here Nong Sai is younger brother and Nong Sao is younger sister. Similarly, Pi Sai is elder brother and Pi Sao is elder sister. In the formation of kinship terms, we can also see addition of affixes. So in Fakir, some kinship terms are formed by adding affixes in the initial or the final position to an already existing words to show the affinal relationship among the family members, as we can see in Na and Mena. So Na is the mother's younger brother, while Mena is the wife of mother's younger brother. May here again Na and Na Hoi, where Na denotes mother's younger sister, while Na Hoi denotes husband of mother's younger sister. So compounding is very widely used in Thai Fakir. In Thai Fakir, kinship terms are used. The Thai Fakir kinship terms are formed by two completely two kinship terms by joining two kinship terms. So in this process, for example, we can see here Luk Pao and Nong Pao. So Luk is the morpheme which denotes child, where Nong is the younger brother. When Pao is added, it implies daughter-in-law and wife of younger brother respectively. Like here, Luke is added with, Pao is added with Luke. Luke is the child, and Pao, when Pao is added, it refers to daughter-in-law. And again here, Nong something signifies younger. When Pao is added to her, it becomes the wife of younger brother. So adjective plus noun. In Fakir, adjective is used before noun, which helps to identify who is elder or younger among siblings. So a number of kinship terms in Fakir are formed with this process, like Pi Sai and Pi Sao, where P is the adjective that implies elder, thus elder brother and elder sister respectively. Here Sai means boy and Sao is the girl. When P is added to it, it becomes elder sister, elder brother, and P Sao becomes elder sister. So here I chose some morphemes that commonly used. So in Fakir, the morpheme look, which indicates child, is used before words denoting boy and girl to express boy and girl child, like look sai and look sao. Here, look is the morpheme which denotes the child, sai is boy, so it becomes son, and look sao becomes daughter. Similarly, to express elder among siblings, P morpheme is used, like P Sai and P Sao. Here, P is the adjective which implies elder, and similarly, P Sao, which becomes elder brother and elder sister. To indicate younger among siblings, the morpheme nong is used, like nong sai and nong sao. So here nong indicates younger, and sai, as mentioned earlier, sai is boy and sao is girl. So nong sai becomes younger brother and nong sao becomes younger sister. Again, to indicate affinal relationships, khoi morpheme is generally used with males in the society. So P Hoi, P is some P is someone indicate P is the morpheme which indicates someone like elder sister of father. So when Hoi is added with P, it becomes husband of ego's elder sister. Similarly, Na implies mother's younger sister. So when Khoi is added to Na, it becomes husband of mother's younger sister. Similarly, in case of Ang Khoi, Ang is the father's younger sister. When Khoi is added, it becomes husband of father's younger sister. Similarly, Nong Khoi, husband of younger sister. So to indicate daughter-in-law, or the like, Pao morpheme is used. Like look is the child, and when Pao is added to it, it becomes daughter-in-law. Nung is the younger. When Pao is added to it, it becomes wife of younger brother. So to denote grandchildren, Lan morpheme is used before words indicating boy and girls. So Lan Sai and Lan Sao. Lan Sai indicates grandson and Lan Sao indicates granddaughter. Again, to express great grandchildren, lean morpheme is used after words denoting grandparents, like Pu and Ya. Pu means grandfather and Ya means grandmother. So when lean is added to Pu and Ya, it becomes great grandfather and great grandmother. So in Fakir, we have different terminologies for different generational level. So here I have grouped the kinship terms. So collateral kinship. In collateral kinship is equal sibling and their siblings' descendants. So we have P Sai, P Sao, Nong Sai, and Nong Sao. Then lineal kinship. Lineal kinship is equals direct ancestor or descendants. So here I have Luk Sai means son, Luk Young means daughter, Ya Ya is G2 grandfather, and Pu is grandmother. Pu Lin is great grandfather, and Ya Lin is great grandmother. Okay, so here I have mentioned some affinal kinship terms. So Ho Chao means father-in-law, and Ne Chao is mother-in-law. So next Pi Chai. Pi Chai, as I have mentioned earlier, signifies elder as in a husband's elder brother. Then Pa is husband's elder sister, and it always signifies some in society, when we signify someone elder, in Pakistan they use pa. Mea, Mea is husband or husband's younger sister. Poao, Poao is husband's younger brother. Pi Khoi, husband of elder sister. So here P is the elder sister and Khoi is added. So it becomes husband of elder sister. Nong Khoi. Nong is younger and Khoi is the husband. Where Nong Khoi is husband of younger sister. Luk Pao. Luk Pao is daughter-in-law. Nong Pao, wife of younger brother. Then we have Na. Na means mother's younger brother and Na means mother younger sister. So here we have homogeneous terms for mother's younger brother and sister. Then we have Ao. Ao means mother's father's younger brother. Then A means father's younger sister. Pona, wife's younger sister. Then Mena, wife of mother's younger brother. Melo, wife of father's younger brother. Nakhoi, so Nakhoi is husband of mother's sister. Aokhoi, husband of father's sister. So here I came to the conclusion that kinship is an important part of culture. And in Pake society, kinship terms play a vital role, but because of less number of speakers and influence of the dominant language, that is Assamese, some kinship terms are not in use. So they are seen to use Assamese instead of some kinship terms, like in their houses, they use papa or ma, like that. Then the Tai-Fake kinship pattern can be mainly classified in two categories, consanguineous and affinal. So there are some homogeneous kinship terms, as I have mentioned earlier, which are used frequently in the society, which shows a connection between family members. For example, lung. So lung is a morpheme which is used for father's and mother's elder brother. So here is the references. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rita, for your really nice presentation, to the point, and also within time. So now I would like to open both the presentations for questions. If any of you have any questions, you can either request to speak using the Zoom system or write it on the chat box. So I open both our Dhiren's presentation and Rita's presentation open for discussion. Right? Monali, do we have any question in the chat or something?
Not yet. I haven't seen any question. There was just a suggestion of recommended reading by Temsu for the glottal stop. Other than that, there is no question in the chat box.
Okay, yeah. So Rita, if nobody has any questions until others have questions, maybe I can quickly ask. So did you collect the data on your own, or you have used?
I have collected my data on my own, and I have collected the data from Namphake village, which is in Dibrugarh district.
Okay. So and what are you looking into apart from like in the kinship terms? Are you also looking into the phonology or any other?
Yeah, actually, I'm working on morphology, so I'm looking for that, like word formation processes in morphology, like how the words are formed.
Okay. And so kinship is not something that our Stephen Moore has worked on very extensively, is it?
Yes.
Okay, so there is a research, like, there is a gap there that you're trying to fill in. Is it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions on any of the two?
Just Priyanku, one small question. Thanks for the presentation. So with regard to, again, the data, Thai being a tonal language, I think there is no representation of tone in the data. So it would be good to see the tonal representations in such data. My question was basically on these changes in kinship terms as a result of replacing consonants as well as vowels. So again, whether you have come across any change in kinship terms as a result of tonal changes. So whether tonal difference can result in change in kinship terms, just like your consonants and vowels.
No, sir, as this is my preliminary study, so I have not come across like that. So I am studying in that topic.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be since you've just started out,
Yes,
just it is, I think, very important to, even if it is a small presentation, right from the beginning, to get into the habit of transcribing even the tone representations. That would help in your later analysis.
yes, sir. So I will look into it.
Any other comments or questions? So one of the things that I wanted to mention in the previous presentation was that as far as glottal stops are concerned, what we have noticed in the phonetic literature, what people have noticed is that glottal stops can actually express themselves in several different ways. In some cases, it is a true glottal stop. In many cases, it just looks like a periodic. Actually, it also has a periodic representation. Also, almost looks like any other voiced consonants. So that is what I wanted to mention. I think at one point of time, I found probably Mark Gerlach's work in which he has said that there are 3 different types of actually glottal stops that are seen in the world languages, depending on where they occur and then other factors. So the ones that occur in a non-final position, they are not very glottal stop-like.
Okay, is there any material that you can send Priyanka regarding this?
I can certainly do that, yes.
Yeah, later, yeah.
Yeah, Priyanku, so I need the material.
Yeah, sure. And then also, Temsu has also basically.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Monali referred to Alex's work on Mongsen. So one of the, I think, reasons that he treated it as segmental, not as a phoneme, was because glottal stops in Ao, whether it's Zhongli or Mongsen, it keeps deleting if it occurs, let's say in a compound. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why it's considered. But yeah, it's also we usually don't realize I think articulation of glottal stop. So again, if you look at glottal stop distribution, it's always at the end of a word. But I've seen this with many recordings. Not only my recording, but even other informants, where there's always a glottal kind of a strict closure at the beginning. So we have these vowel initial words, right? And in almost all of these vowel initial words, many informants actually have this phonetic, I call it phonetic because I can't hear it, phonetic closure at the beginning,
Yeah.
which is actually, I think, very interesting. And perception wise, neither can I hear it, nor am I, okay, can I see it? I can see it only in the wave, in the spectrogram. So that was something,
Okay.
an observation that I had.
Very interesting, Tamsu. Really interesting. Yeah, we have to look the occurrences of the glottal. That is very important. So
the one that you're mentioning, they're actually not like considered as glottal stops. They're only like like syllables beginning with with low onsets, right? Is that what
yeah.
you're okay? Mhm. Okay, seems like there are no more questions. Or is there any other comments or discussions that you'd like to have? No? Okay. So if that is the case, then I hand it over to Monali. And thanks a lot for the presentations, Rita and Hiren. We learned a lot of new things from your presentations. And thank you all for your participation. Over to Monali.
Yeah, thank you, Pinku.
Sure.
Thank you, Priyankuda, for chairing today's session, the last session of day one. And I also would like to thank our plenary speaker, Professor Dhiren Singha, for his extensive talk on the phonological typology of Northeast India, special relation to the TB languages of Northeast India. And it led to many interesting discussions, especially regarding the glottal stop, because its status is still quite intriguing to many of us as Tibeto-Burmanists. And I also would like to thank Rita Saha, our young leading linguist from Assam University, for her wonderful presentation, and her first presentation actually on kinship terms in Thai Pake. So, and thank you to all the participants for being there since morning 10 a.m. till almost 7:30. We hope to see you tomorrow again. Tomorrow is day 2, and we'll be starting with the first session on ethno-linguistics at 10 a.m. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Monali. Thank you all.